toxic masculinity.
I have a super chat here. Wow, I got a few super chats. Jeez. Okay. This one's from Abel Garcia. Sorry, guys, but I have to do it. Beetlejuice, Beetlejuice, Beetlejuice. Chicago mayor appears behind me. She does look bizarrely like Beetlejuice, right? Let's see. Images. Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's Lori Lightfoot. That's basically the same person, you guys. Can I switch to nope, that's not it. Oh, man, come on, man. All right, let's have a look here. Yeah, that's Lori Lightfoot. It's pretty much the same person, right? Yeah, that's pretty funny. Let's see, where am I? There I am. Okay, let me try to find some of the other super chats here. Gosh, there was a lot, guys. MJ Jackson writes, if you read my previous super chats, it explains why Nancy's daughter contacted me. Okay, well, just email me. Come on, MJ. Let's do this. Gamma Goblin Miller writes, keep standing tall. Well, thank you, Gamma Goblin. Or Mr. Miller, whatever you prefer. Let's see here. Dark Crusher writes, Beetlejuice head. Everybody likes to call her Beetlejuice. Abel Garcia. Okay, the Beetlejuice thing. Sorry, guys. I can't scroll back far enough. I know a lot of people left super chats, and I can't find them. Because if Valeria's not here, I don't have access. I should have got. Somebody had suggested earlier on that I get like an external chat, and I never set that up. I just have a lot of stuff to do, guys. By the way, you guys want to see something cool? I don't know if I can I show it? Yeah, I think I can show it. Okay, Abel Garcia writes, I'm done with people like Beetlejuice and her black supremacy. They talk about white supremacy, but all I see is black supremacy. And I say this as a first-generation Mexican-American. Man, you are so right. And I've talked about this on the show a lot. Basically, since the first day I started my show, I've tried to make clear that, look. Uh-oh. Oh, hey. Ashley sent me screenshots of your guys' super chats. Ashley, that's awesome. Thank you. Yeah, I've said this from basically when I first started my show, which is that, look, there's all this talk, there's all these ideas that all this white supremacy exists in America. But I'm a conservative white American, right? If anybody's going to talk about, hey, those horrible blacks, they're going to be talking to me, right? Yeah, I mean, I look a little like Mexican or maybe like Italian or so. I mean, I look maybe a little bit dark, right? But I'm German and I'm Scottish, right? I'm like the whitest people. Why I look a little bit like I have very dark hair, very dark eyes, dark brown eyes, and in the summertime especially, I get very tanned. So maybe to everybody, I don't look like, super, super white. What's funny is actually when I go to Germany, people, or I meet Germans, they're like, oh, yes, you look German. You totally, I can totally tell you are German, yes. And I don't really know how they can tell. I mean, I guess I haven't lived in Germany enough, but certain people from Germany are like, oh, yes, you are obviously German. So there are people that look enough like me from Germany that I'm a common look. I remember being in Paris and looking around and being like, oh my God, everybody here looks exactly like me. It was freaking weird. But I mean, culturally, I grew up with a white family in sort of like an all-American household, very 1950s style, even though I grew up in the 80s. We just had this sort of, I mean, I think we had a very good family. I mean, I had a very good family life. I had a sort of very sort of classical, traditional American stuff. I mean, we always had Thanksgiving together. I mean, it looked like a Norman Rockwell painting. Like if Norman Rockwell painted families in the 1980s, it would be our family he was painting, I think, And I had a very good American, culturally white life growing up, and genetically I'm white. And so I do think that if there were so many white supremacists in America, I'd know about it. I'd meet these people. Okay, Ashley thinks she sent me all the super chats. That's awesome. I think I would know these people. I think I would meet them. And I just don't. But I will tell you this. I've met a lot of black people in my life. I grew up in Oregon, so there weren't a lot, but the ones who were there, I met and I hung out with and I spent time with. And the only racist person that I met growing up was a black kid named Kenny. And Kenny had watched the movie Malcolm X, and he got real into it. And we all knew that he was a sort of black supremacist at school, but we were all kind of friends with him anyway, because if we weren't, he wouldn't have any friends, because there just weren't enough black people in school. And I don't think he was really like super good. He was friends with some of the other black kids, but there's just too, like, I don't know. He just essentially, he had to be friends with everybody because, it would have been weird otherwise. But he still maintained this black supremacist crap, and we just kind of laughed it off, like, oh, it's Kenny. But then as I got older, and I moved around the country, I lived in Miami, I lived in New York, I've lived in London, I've lived in Toronto, I lived in Portland, Oregon, and I've lived obviously in LA. And I can tell you, Los Angeles, especially, like, but I've met people from everywhere. I've met people from all kinds of different countries. I've met people from Africa. I've met people from Detroit and just everywhere, right? Everywhere you can imagine, I've met people from. And I got to tell you, like, the most racist Americans that I meet, that I've met throughout my life, are black Americans. Black Americans have a kind of get out of jail free card when it comes to racism. They seem to think it's okay for them to be racist against white people. There's this idea like, oh, white people were mean to black people hundreds of years ago, and therefore they can be mean to white people now. Like, they can resent white people, they can hate white people. That's actually fine. But that's not fine, because the people who they're hating aren't the right people, right? If you're going to hate someone, hate the nameless, faceless white slave owner from 200 years ago. Don't hate me. I didn't do anything. Crap, my parents didn't even come here. My ancestors didn't even come here till like the Civil War, and even then we were on the West Coast or the Midwest. Like, we had nothing to do with that whole situation. So, like, why am I hated by black people? But there is this kind of thing in black culture where it's like okay to be racist against white people. I don't understand that at all. But that's America, right? We don't seem to care about that. And then people like Lori Lightfoot now, and this is something that's actually quite astonishing, is like, I meant to mention this during the Lori Lightfoot thing, but like, Democrats have been racist for a long time, racist against white people. But they haven't really admitted it as openly as this. This is the first time I've ever seen a Democrat politician of Lori Lightfoot's, I guess, notoriety, right? I mean, she's like a very well-known figure. And this is the first time I've seen, high profile is the term I'm looking for. I've never seen a Democrat politician this high profile be so openly racist against white people. This is pretty incredible. You have some people like Cori Bush. I mean, you have it occasionally. You will hear some racist stuff come out here or there, like. But somebody at that level, with that much power, that high profile, she's the mayor of one of the most important cities on the planet. She's very well known, and she's sitting there and she's setting racist policies. And that's another thing. You don't usually see Democrats creating overtly racist policies. They will create racist policies for sure, but not something that so obviously violates the Constitution. This is the most overt racist policy I've ever seen implemented by a high-profile leftist. And so it's just gotten to that point, right? It's just gotten to the point where they're just openly racist now on the left. That's pretty crazy to me. All right, well, let's have a look here. MJ Jackson also write, got arrested. Media twisted my story, slandered my name. Family are getting threats, purged off of all social media. Oh, crap. Oh, man, you're going to have to tell me about this. This is crazy. MJ Jackson also writes, FBI is going after everyone for January 6th. I'm a disabled veteran. Media doxed my address. Okay, so you were at the Capitol January 6th. Yeah, how dare you, MJ Jackson? How dare you casually walk through the Capitol building? I don't even know if you went to the Capitol building. Maybe you did, maybe you didn't, but yeah, I mean, come on. The January 6th protests, that was not an insurrection. It was not a riot. Okay. I love the footage that's getting put out now with like the the protesters talking to the police and then being like, "Yeah, we're cool with you being here," and the left is still calling it an insurrection. An insurrection. Give me a break. Well, we got to send the FBI after them. It's absolute BS. I do suspect that it might be because of Pelosi's laptop that they're really, going after everybody. But it might just be the corrupt FBI trying to send a message to conservatives: we control you. Don't even try to step out of line. We will destroy your lives. That's not how America is supposed to work. Law enforcement is not supposed to be used as a political weapon. We are devolving into Venezuela very quickly, and this needs to be fixed. Let's see here. Trom 2CH2. I don't know what that means. Interesting name, but I didn't work it out. Let's see here. If you keep putting toxic masculinity stuff on Mr. Reagan, I will unsubscribe to that channel. Well, that's okay. I can do without your subscription. It's a shame that you don't appreciate the toxic masculinity stuff. I like it. I think it's a really good way of getting good content out that I maybe wouldn't have time to produce for Mr. Reagan if I just focused on the Mr. Reagan style videos, which is why I'm putting those out. And I'm not going to stop putting toxic masculinity stuff out there. Even if at some point I stop doing toxic masculinity, I will continue to do this style of video, because there's just no way for me to cover. I mean, this is really the reason I started this channel, is because there's so much news. Like, these 3 stories are such great stories, and if I were to, people are replying to this guy, "Okay, bye." There are just so many great stories out there, and I just don't have time to go through and do a deep dive research into every single one of them and then produce a Mr. Reagan video. So occasionally I have to do a video where I just react to the news, and this toxic masculinity channel is a great way for me to do that, and I love doing it. And to me, it's very important that everybody pay attention to some of these stories. And like, a lot of these stories, they're not in the news, right? They're not in the mainstream news. You won't see them on Fox News. You won't see them on necessarily even on like Newsmax or OAN. You're just not going to see this stuff in a lot of the major news networks, like the broadcast networks, or even in some of the some of the stuff you can read online. Just because some of these are obscure. There's a lot of what I try to produce on toxic masculinity is some of the stories that are a little bit obscure. You'll notice if you pay attention to the content that I have versus what you'll see on, say, Fox or something like that. Fox will obviously cover every major news story. Of course they will. They're a major corporation. That's what they do. A lot of other channels on YouTube will do the same. They know where the money is. They know where the views are going to be on these major stories. And if a story's big enough, of course I'll cover it. But I don't like to cover the major news stories. I like to cover the more obscure stuff that you're not necessarily going to see anywhere else, because at least part of what I'm trying to offer everybody on this channel and on Mr. Reagan is a perspective you're not going to find anywhere else. And some of that has to do with just me and how I see things. And if I look at whatever everybody else is saying and I'm like, people aren't copping on to this one thing, I have a slightly different perspective. To me, that's good enough, right? That's good enough. I'll do that video. But another thing is just covering stories that people aren't covering, stuff that needs to be covered. Like the most recent video that I did that really blew up was that story about the black woman who adopted a little white girl and then murdered her. Nobody had covered that story. And I looked at that and I thought, how is this not the biggest story in America right now? We're all upset because a white cop arrested a black criminal, George Floyd, and then George Floyd died of a drug overdose in custody, and now the white guy is being charged for murder, and we're all outraged because of this. And yet this black woman adopted a little white girl and murdered her, and we don't care. Like, nobody cares. We're not reporting on this. This is crazy to me. So yeah, some of the reason why I think toxic masculinity is such an important other channel, and why I'm frustrated that it's not growing more, is that I do think that we need to have access to some of these stories that aren't being addressed in the mainstream media. And by mainstream media, I don't just mean the leftist media. I mean Fox News as well and places like that. Let's see here. MJ Jackson also writes, I have all the evidence of Antifa and Black Lives Matter setting it up. I'm being politically persecuted. Could get a kick out of college and Oh, could get kicked out of college and refereeing. Oh, you're a referee. That's kind of a fun job, I imagine. Probably stressful. Um, yeah, yeah. That Yeah, let me know the evidence you have. Maybe I'll try to make a video about that. It's very hard to make videos about January 6th without getting it deleted by YouTube or getting censored, especially now. I mean, YouTube has gone crazy. YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, they've all gone crazy. They're just like, they're just ban happy. They're very happy to ban everybody. Okay, here, let's see here. Tomb2ch2, the one that said that he was going to leave Mr. Reagan if I kept posting toxic masculinity on it, says the point isn't about me not wanting to watch toxic masculinity content. It's that you're labeling the videos as Mr. Reagan videos. I don't want to double watch your videos. Keep them as clips on toxic masculinity. And I actually kind of agree with that. That's something I don't really want to. I don't want to double up my content. The reason that works for me is because right now you've got 1,357 views of this video today. I currently have 147 people watching, and on my Mr. Reagan videos, I used to get a minimum of 60,000 people that would watch my videos. That would be about the lowest number I would get. 50, 60,000 would be the lowest number I get. Now that YouTube's got their boot on my neck, it's a little bit different. I get a minimum of about 20,000, sometimes even less than that, which is crazy, because YouTube has been restricting me so much. But it's still, look, I mean, I've got 1,300 playbacks right now, and I get minimum 20,000. You know, on a good video, I'll get like 200,000 views. You know, I do get that if you watch Toxic Masculinity and you watch Mr. Reagan, you're going to get a lot of doubled up content. I would hope that the people that watch Mr. Reagan will watch Toxic Masculinity, because you guys are the really, like, you know, you guys are the people I appreciate the most on YouTube, obviously. But I would imagine that if you would watch the videos here, and then you would see, oh, he's posted on Mr. Reagan, you'd just be like, you know, if you didn't want to watch it twice, you just go, okay, well, I won't watch that one. I think that's a totally reasonable response. Unlike Democrats, I actually believe that you guys have the capacity to make choices on your own. Right? I think you guys have enough brain power. You can say, I don't want to watch that again. Or if you want to watch it again, say, oh yeah, you know what, that was a good story. I want to watch that again. You have the capacity to do that. Or if you don't recognize the story, you don't remember that it was on Toxic Masculinity, which I would totally do, and you start playing, you go, oh, I saw this already. You know, move on to a different video. You don't have to watch it again. Yeah. Let's see here. Abel Garcia writes, why don't you work with Elijah Schaefer once you get the January 6th protest evidence? Elijah was there, and this could be helpful for the two of you. You know, that's actually not a bad idea. I'm going to go see Elijah the end of June. We're gonna go hang out together, and yeah. So, look, I mean, I can fly to Dallas anytime and work with Elijah. You know, he's really one of my best friends, really awesome dude, and you know, I have a kind of open invitation to go on the Blaze over there. So, yeah, that's something that could totally be done. He really wants me to move to Texas and join the Blaze, so that because right now he's like overwhelmed with estrogen. Like he's got his wife, he's got his producer Savannah, and you know, they're great. And also my friend Sydney over there, and they all kind of like hang out with him at his house, which he loves all of them. I mean, they're all, obviously he loves his wife, but they're all awesome people. But he's like, dude, I need to hang out with a guy every once in a while. Anyway, I love Elijah. Awesome guy. All right, let me keep looking at these. Luke Mahalik writes, audio is out, Chris. Okay, I'm sorry for not noticing that, guys. Gamma Goblin, I read that one. Keep standing tall. Thank you so much. And I think that's all of them. Well, guys, oh, and by the way, Trom2 Channel 2, Trom2CH2, I don't know how to read your name, man. I mean, it is a fair criticism, I gotta say, and I don't want everybody to like hate this guy, because it's not you know, it's not an unreasonable thing to, you know, to feel like, okay, I'm kind of cheating that I'm using content on both. But what I noticed really early on, so like I said, I do want to produce more content on Mr. Reagan for the massive people that follow my Mr. Reagan channel, as opposed to like the few of you guys. But what I noticed pretty early on is that if I post all of these segments individually on Mr. Ray on the Toxic Masculinity channel, certain videos get a lot of hits, and I can say, okay, people are interested in that video, so I'll go ahead and post that on Mr. Reagan. What's weird about that is I'm not always like able to guess which videos are going to do well. Like the Ellen DeGeneres video did relatively well on Toxic Masculinity. It didn't do as well on Mr. Reagan. It's actually not doing well at all on Mr. Reagan. But for some reason on Toxic Masculinity, there's quite a few views on the Ellen DeGeneres story, and I just thought, like, I'm surprised that one would get so many hits. I don't think conservatives care that much about Ellen DeGeneres. It was just a story that I thought was kind of interesting. I like Hollywood stuff, and I know most of my viewers don't, but I thought, well, okay, if people really like that story, let's go ahead and throw that on the Mr. Reagan channel, and we'll see if it does well and people are interested in that. They're not. People don't care that much about the Ellen DeGeneres thing. But it is a good way for me to some degree to like see what people like and then say, okay, people like that story. Okay, people like that story. I can't always predict it, guys. It's one of those weird things, like, and I've talked to all my YouTuber friends, Elijah, Sydney, Sargon of Akkad, all of the different YouTubers that I know. I've talked to them all about this, and it's like, we can never predict what a good video is going to be. Every once in a while, there's a video that you go, okay, this one's going to be a big one. And you put the video together and boom, it goes huge. And you just know, right? But when you're like 80% sure or 90% sure, you're like, I'm pretty sure this video is going to blow up. And then you do it, and it's like, sometimes it just like, and you just think, what the hell? Like, come on, this was an awesome video. And sometimes you put like a month's worth of work into a video and it just crashes, and it's just so heartbreaking. And then every once in a while you do a video that's like, okay, this is a fun one. Okay, I'll just do it real quick, and I'm not going to research it, and I'm just going to do it, and blah, 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 throw it together, put it up, and then like the next morning you're like, holy crap, how did this video do so well, you know? It's just weird, you know? You don't always know which videos are going to blow up and which videos are going to crash. Occasionally, you know, but for the most part, it's kind of a crapshoot. I mean, you can kind of get some sense of which videos are going to do well, but it's much more random than you might think. And I think a lot of it has to do with the thumbnails that I put up and the titles I put up. Like, I always think that my thumbnails are good. I always think my titles are good. Sometimes they're not really. The video that is done, really one of the best videos I've done, is a video called "The Top 10 Stupidest Things Democrats Have Ever Said," or something like that, right? And I had this idea. I'm going to put together a bunch of top 10 videos just about Democrats and politics, because you don't see that too much. You see it a little bit. You see top 10 videos about everything, but how often do you see a political channel doing it? So I was like, well, I'll just do a top 10 thing for a little while, and I did a few of them. The first one I ever did, top 10 stupidest things said by Democrats, that one was a hit, man. That's probably my most consistently successful video. That one somehow has transcended the algorithm crush of YouTube. I don't know how, but I think it gets shared a lot offline. I'm not really sure, but that one does really well. Yeah, that's probably my top performing video over time. Obviously my top performing video ever is the AOC one, but Andre writes, I like the show better without the wife. She looks like you just kidnapped her. I get this criticism a lot, and I have to say, what the hell is wrong with people? I mean, honestly, what is wrong with some of you guys? You sit there and you like criticize my wife. Like, I feel like crawling through the computer and slapping you. Like, honestly, you don't criticize a man's wife. That's just like retard level thinking. First of all, I didn't mean specifically to attack you, Apollo's Vader, Andres. Sorry, Andres. But I do get this comment that she looks like she's here against her will and she's been kidnapped and all this kind of stuff. There are a couple of points to make about that. One, she doesn't love being in front of the camera. She's become much more comfortable doing the Toxic Masculinity show because she likes you guys actually quite a lot. We talk about you guys when we're off camera, and she likes doing the show. She likes you guys. She likes the news. She loves politics, actually. She talks about politics a lot more off the air than she does on the air. It's really hard to get her to talk because she's very shy. She grew up very shy. She's just a very shy girl, and she doesn't like to speak. And actually, it's a problem. To some degree, it's a problem in our relationship because I'll say stuff to her and she won't respond. I'll be like, Valeria, you have to respond to things that I say sometimes. I mean, it's just weird. And it's really frustrating sometimes to get her to respond to a comment or something. If she doesn't have something to say, she just won't say anything, which maybe we should all do a little bit more of. But in America, we're not really used to that. We're used to people saying at least, yeah, it's something, but a lot of times she's just really quiet. And the other thing is she's Russian, right? And Russians, the sort of resting face of Russians isn't a pleasant face. The resting face of Russians is an unhappy face. And a lot of that has to do with this idea that Russia's a miserable place. And if you look happy, then you're lying. This is an idea in Russia. It's a very weird idea. But there's this idea that if you're happy, then that means you're lying. And, and people don't trust you if you're happy. So Russians all kind of look miserable all the time. Now, a lot of Russian girls that I've met that have come over to the United States have been able to fix this and have been able to sort of modify their behavior. And they're very happy, very bubbly, very fun people. But it's not the norm. The norm is if you are a Russian girl, you just look miserable all the time. That's just how they look. And it's very... I had before Valeria, I came relatively close to marrying a Ukrainian girl, and it was exactly the same with her. People thought she was miserable all the time. I'm like, yeah, that's just how she looks. She looks like she's pissed off all the time. It's in a way, it's kind of the model look, isn't it? It's like the look that models always have, like they're always mad, Melania Trump kind of looks like that a little bit. Paper Plate said he mentioned his exes. Well, I think that's a good place to end the show. So thanks for watching, you guys. I really do appreciate you all. And yeah, stay subscribed. Make sure you get notifications on Mr. Reagan, not on Toxic Masculinity, because you'll get notifications like 30 times a day. But yeah, make sure you're subscribed to Mr. Reagan, except for the one guy. Look, I appreciate constructive criticism. Honestly, I complain a little bit, but you guys have every right to criticize the show. Tell me what you like, what you don't like. It's actually helpful to me to some degree if I can not be so emotional about it and hurt. But I don't like criticizing the wife. I don't like when people criticize the wife. But if you want to criticize me or the show in any other way, I'm perfectly fine with that. I welcome it. Oh, sorry. Jordan B just jumped in at the last second here. He says, I really appreciate the work you put into your 2 YouTube channels you produce. Valeria is an amazing voice and compliment to your work. Thank you so much, Jordan. Thank you so much. Look, when Valeria does have something to say, sometimes it's pretty profound, and it's stuff that I don't always think of. It's like a different perspective. So I do appreciate it when she comes up with something smart. And occasionally she comes out with a pretty clever joke, which I love that as well. I wish she spoke more, but it's just in her nature not to. So yeah, we're working. We're talking about whether or not she's going to want to stay on the show, whether I'll get somebody else, whether it'll just be me from now on. We talk about that stuff sometimes. So far, we don't have any real plans to change the format of the show or anything like that. So it is what it is. I like her being on the show. Other people don't. Again, it did occur to me a while back that there is something about the connection that any YouTuber has, not just me, but any YouTuber has with the audience when they're the only person on camera. I'm just talking to you guys. I'm not talking to anybody else. When Valeria's here, I'm talking to her. And that, to some degree, I think that severs the connection between the audience and the YouTuber. And that's not good. You don't want that. You want, it becomes more of a voyeuristic thing if you're just watching the two of us talk. So I do think there is something very powerful about speaking directly to the audience and not having somebody else there distracting you. So, we may shift to that in the future. That hasn't been decided yet, but that's something that I have considered. Let's see here. John but Jack, hey, man. Good to see you. He says, talk to masculinity. I got here late, but did you talk about Eastern Oregon's vote on seceding to Idaho? No, I didn't. I haven't. That is a big story, actually. I should have probably brought that up. Oregon has actually voted. Some counties in Oregon have voted to move to become part of Idaho, or at least to start the process of moving to Idaho. The problem is that this has to be approved by, I think, the Oregon State Legislature, and that will never happen, right? They're all leftists. They do not like people in rural Oregon. They basically set policies to mess with them. It is a disaster over there in Oregon. You have a bunch of ivory tower city folks basically creating legislation to screw over farmers and rural Oregonians. Basically, a bunch of Democrats making legislation to screw over Republicans. It happens every year more and more in Oregon, and it's terrible. So a lot of Oregonians want to become part of Idaho, and actually some rural California counties want to become part of Idaho as well. They want to make this big thing called Greater Idaho. Problem with Idaho, as I see it, and there's probably some people from Idaho here who are going to get mad at me, but I don't like the name Idaho. I don't like the name of the state. I mean, I know that's kind of like a stupid petty thing, but like I grew up in Oregon. I love the name Oregon. It's a great name for a state. It's kind of a weird name. Idaho is also kind of a good name. It's kind of a weird name, but the problem with Idaho is that and I'm sorry, this is true, guys. It's not my fault. This is just part of the culture. Idaho is best known for potatoes, and I know there's some very beautiful parts of the state. I've been through Idaho. My father grew up in Kalispell, Montana, and so if you're from Idaho, you know Kalispell. It's sort of right there on the border of Idaho and Montana. But so we've driven through Idaho. We've seen some beautiful parts of Idaho. It's really truly a great state. But I don't like the name Idaho. So that's the one drawback to me is that if all these states secede and move into Idaho, then they'll all be called Idaho, and I'd rather have them be called Oregon, but whatever. It would definitely be the best situation. And the reason it'd be the best situation is because Idaho would grow in population so much. They'd have more representatives, they'd have more electoral votes, and we'd be taking electoral votes from Oregon and from California and putting them in Idaho, which is a red state. And so we'd be reliably red, voting for president, and we'd have more not senators, congressmen that were Republicans. And so, well, I don't. Is that true? That may not actually be true because it may not. It depends on how gerrymandered the districts are. I'd have to look into that, but certainly it would be better for the electoral votes for president. And so I do think it's a good thing. Also, the people that live in those rural counties would not be affected by. They would not be ruled by these Democrats that live in the cities. So it's just a better case all round. Bigfoot the Chipmunk says, I know someone in Oregon who is conservative, but was so terrified of the COVID disease for her young son, I wondered if she was actually afraid of other issues. There's just call it Eastern Oregon and get 3 more Republicans for Congress. Yeah, I mean, we could totally split the state. That would be great. We should split the state. Paper Plates writes, Idaho's problem is that people there are called Idahoans, and that's a stupid name. It sort of sounds Hawaiian somehow. I don't know what that is, but it's weird. Like, I don't, I've never been to Hawaii. I've never had an interest in going to Hawaii. And then last year we went to Hawaii. Now I'm like obsessed with Hawaii. It's one of those things where everybody's like, this is the best, this is the best. And you're like, why? And then you go there and you're like, this is the best. It's just one of those things where I was wrong, guys. I was wrong. I always thought Hawaii would be kind of lame, and it is not lame. It is amazing. It's just so frustrating that so many Democrats rule such beautiful places, right? Like, Oregon is really beautiful. You guys should check out Oregon. It's I think Valeria and I've been trying to plan this trip where we just go down the coast of Oregon and we just stay at different cities on the coast and we check out all the different things you can look at because I never did that as a kid. We would always go to certain beaches. We went to Astoria, we'd go to Newport, we'd go to Lincoln City, and then there was like, I think Depot Bay, of course, but down south there's a couple of places. Florence, we'd go down to Florence. There's these sand dunes that are in Oregon. The movie Dune, the original movie Dune, was actually shot in Oregon because we have sand dunes there. One of those weird things, man. I had a really cool childhood. Oregon has so many cool things. Like, you think of it as just one big green forest, and that's kind of true. But that's only the west part of Oregon. On the east part of Oregon, there's just this massive desert. You get some pine trees, but mostly it's just desert. And then you go to the south, and you got the dunes. You go, of course, I got Mount Hood, so you can go snow skiing. We used to go water skiing over at Detroit Lake, and you got the ocean. So we used to go crabbing. We used to, go get clamming, crabbing, fishing. Yeah, it was a great place, man. Great place to grow up. If you want to raise kids, you can't really do much better than Oregon, except for the politicians now. But anyway, sorry, that's me going on about my childhood. Cats of Sherman says, I live in Washington. Pacific Northwest is the most beautiful part of the country. I mean, it just really is, guys. It's hard to beat the Pacific Northwest. I was in a small town in near Chicago recently in Illinois, and it looked pretty similar to the towns I grew up in, Salem when I was growing up as a kid. I'm like, oh, this is kind of a nice throwback. So there are places in the Midwest that look similar, but, I would say... Really, I think probably one of the most beautiful places I've ever been in the world is where I grew up, because I've traveled a lot, and there are some spectacular places in the world, but Oregon really is a kind of hidden gem, and Washington as well, Pacific Northwest, and British Columbia also, just phenomenal. One place I need to visit is Alaska. I have some relatives there, so I should go, but everybody's like, Alaska's amazing, so I'll check that out eventually. Which has the worst commies, Oregon or California? I think probably California, but the problem is that it's the Oregon politicians are really, well, that's actually, you got Antifa up there in Portland, so Portland may actually take the cake. So I used to live in Portland, and I have to say it, like a lot of the people that are in Antifa in those groups, they're basically like cosplayers, right? They're like children. They've got arrested development. They've kind of got stunted intellectual growth. They're all a bunch of basically rebellious teenagers, even the ones like that are in their 30s. But they're all acting like rebellious teenagers. They're like children. They don't know how to function in society properly. And there was this thing when I was a kid that the nerds that I knew would do called LARPing, which is something I never did, and it seemed like would be a bit of fun, right? You basically, it's called live action role playing, right? You go out with these like big foam swords and you pretend to, fight each other in like medieval battle or something like that. I had a friend who did this kind of stuff, and that kind of quasi nerdy, fake war type thing. That's what Antifa are. It's a bunch of freaking LARPers out there pretending to be soldiers. We're throwing fireworks at police officers. I mean, they're just a bunch of morons. This is why the police aren't firing actual bullets at them, because they know they're a bunch of stupid children. The problem is you get enough of these stupid children, and you occasionally get somebody with like a Molotov cocktail, and then this massive crowd becomes actually kind of dangerous. And so now you're in this position where they're all individually a bunch of nerdy LARPers who don't really deserve to get their heads cracked. A few of them definitely do. But then en masse, they are actually a dangerous force. So, but anyway, all right, I got to get to work because I've got to put some of these toxic masculinity videos on my Mr. Reagan channel. And I've got to work out some original content for Mr. Reagan as well. So, by the way, guys, for those of you who stayed here long enough to check this out, I'm going to play something for you. This is just a little bit of test footage, so you get to see what I'm kind of working on right now. What am I going to look at? Drive. Yeah, let's do this. My drive. Yeah. Oh, this is good fun.
When it comes to Donald Trump first.
Okay, you can probably hear that. So I'm trying to work. This isn't exactly perfect, but I'm basically trying to work out. I think I'm going to make his eyes a little darker and scarier, but I'm trying to work out how to do these animations so I can do them really quickly, because you don't want to have an animation that you can't that you can't actually produce an episode a week or something like that. So I want to be able to do an episode a week, so I'm trying to figure out how to do this. The next step is to make the body move, but right now this is kind of how I'm going to make the face move.
When it comes to Donald Trump versus me, just look at us, okay? Just look at us. Who seems to be in shape? Who's able to move around? This idea of, slow Joe. I shouldn't laugh about it because, anyway, Donald Trump, just look at us both, watch us, and determine whether or not you think The other portion is a lot of people don't know how to register. Not everybody in the community, in the Hispanic and the African American community, know how to get online to determine how to get in line for that COVID vaccination at the Walgreens or at the particular store.
So you guys kind of see what I'm doing here. I'm just yeah, so I'm kind of working on how to do the animation for this cartoon, and yeah, it should be good. I mean, we got to write some new scripts because the old ones are too dated now. But yeah, so we're still working on the cartoon. It will be out hopefully soon. All right, guys, that's it for today. I will see you guys again soon. And remember, it's not that our liberal friends are ignorant. It's just they know so much that is not so. All right, good night. Toxic masculinity.